You're watching or listening to Strangers in Space, and for the next 4-5 hours, we are going to be talking about the Giggle, so you don't have to. Hi, I'm JR.
I'm Iain.
I'm John.
I'm Lee.
I'm Matt.
I'm Simon.
So Lee managed to, it's just a simple arpeggio, C, E,
I did
G.
Woody Woodpecker on purpose just to, throw off scent.
So let's go around the table. Let's do this reverse alphabetically, and let's just get a slight sample of what everybody thought of tonight's episode before we start digging into the really tricky stuff. And also the nice stuff, I guess, if we can find any. Simon, what did you think?
I'm blown away.
Yeah.
Okay, but that's just you and Lee's normal relationship. What did you think of tonight's episode? You've got you and Lee there, and you've got Iain and Matt there. That kind of leaves me and John as the two kind of gooseberries.
You didn't warn me about that, did you?
2's a company, 6 is a crowd.
Okay, Simon enjoyed it. Matt.
6 is a gangbang. I was blown away by 45 minutes of it.
The first 45?
Yeah, yes.
But not the last 15?
No.
Oh, that's interesting.
Interesting.
Do you want me to unpack or okay?
No, we'll unpack. We'll go through it. We'll go through it in reverse order, probably. Lee, what did you think?
I enjoyed it, but I'm a bit confused at present.
Oh, yeah. Lee, of course, doesn't do spoilers, so he had no idea what was coming. The rest of us knew exactly what was coming.
And it's a standard state, Lee being confused. I mean, it's just...
It's to do with him and Simon, I think. Right, alphabetically, I'm next. I absolutely loved it. John. Hang on, just let the surprise.
I was. I for a moment, I was just going to be gobsmacked. But it doesn't work well on a podcast, does it, Silence?
I did. It's not like I didn't have a couple of niggles, but I think the good stuff so far.
You had niggles with the Giggle.
Yeah, I had niggles with the Giggle, but really tiny ones, and the good stuff so far outweighed the bad. I'll be weighing up whether I can give it the top score. Probably not quite, but I'll be very close. John, you're next.
Well, it's kind of Doctor Who on a scale we haven't really seen before, or it hasn't been able to do before, and I loved that of it. A lot of it I'm still processing, I have to say.
Yeah, fair enough. And Iain?
I thought it was huge fun.
So Ian's been on a roller coaster. I mean, the rest of us, who can say? So, there is a lot of things to talk about. And I guess the natural thing to do would be to talk about all the sort of kind of slightly more frivolous stuff first and save the big things and the end things till later. So let's do the big things and the end things now. And so I'm going to go to Matt and find out what he thought. And then the rest of us can just kind of,
beat me up.
Move on from there. But Matt, you didn't like the last 15 minutes?
No. I didn't mind. So I didn't mind the last 15 minutes. I really liked Ncuti Gatwa. He was great. I loved the fact he didn't have trousers. I thought that was brilliant. My fundamental issue is it felt a bit like The End of Time Part 2, where Russell T Davies had a self-indulgent 10-minute ending that doesn't feel like it's about the Doctor. It felt a bit like in that case it was about Russell T Davies. In this point, it was about David Tennant, and I don't know what the point. It wasn't groundbreaking or shaking the mythology or anything like that. It just seemed to set David Tennant up as a potential future spin-off, which we suspect he will never do anyway.
It was groundbreaking.
Not really. It
was. There were 2 TARDISes and 2 Doctors in the same universe at the same time.
But then
that's quite groundbreaking.
But what does that do? So it's
to be fair, all the Doctors exist in the universe at the same time because they travel in time.
You bloody fan. What's the matter with you?
So for me, what it did was it put the Doctor, played by David Tennant, into a situation which we know is the Doctor's ultimate nightmare, pretty much being exiled to Earth or just resting on Earth, even though he's got the freedom to go off.
Yeah, he said that in the Satan one, didn't he? Satan pit.
We
Yeah,
said it in
but I
this
just don't-
episode as well, when she
I
said
don't
to
know
him,
what-
this is what you have to do now. You have to retire and come and live with me. And he
Yeah,
said,
but I
that's
don't
my
know
ultimate nightmare. But that's where it breaks ground, because
Yeah.
he does go, and then it transpires that it's not his worst nightmare after all. He just thought it was his nightmare. And when he
But
faces it
except
and
he
does
hasn't.
it turns
Except
out
he
to
hasn't. He hasn't retired. He's still travelling.
No,
So
I've got a
whereas-
big theory about this that's just properly
Okay.
occurred to me. It's been formulating, but I think it's the subject of a whole episode. I don't think we can talk about it now.
It's a
No,
very
go and-
Moffat thing, isn't it? That finale.
Yeah,
It's the Doctor ends with the Doctor standing still, and it says the Doctor needs to stand
Yeah, but
still
he
from
doesn't-
time to time.
But he doesn't stand still. He's still going off in the TARDIS. So what we're expected to believe is he doesn't get involved in like adventures. But
But see,
obviously
I
he's still
think there's a
getting involved
lovely
in. He's still getting
kind of
involved in
domestic
adventures
thing.
with different.
I'm sorry, we're
people.
missing the point. The biggest, and most interesting thing that's happening on the podcast right now is wondering what the hell Iain is actually eating.
it's
Can I
later.
tell you right now?
Can
Is
I
it
get
a
my
bit-
theory, please?
My
Is it
lunch
a
has
pie?
just arrived.
No,
It's,
I want-
It's a pineapple and bacon pizza.
Yeah,
Ooh,
oh,
it's-
right.
Oh my
Are you
God.
eating that a bit like Herndl in the Five Doctors?
A bit like that, but with slightly less dignity.
And
No,
it's like fewer
I was
fingerless gloves.
joking. I was joking. It's
No, I think me and Simon should have a conversation because he wants
Yes,
to put forward a
please
theory, and so do I.
Mm.
And mine's a sort of behind the scene. No, mine's a slightly metatextual theory. I don't know if yours will be. Simon, throw me yours.
Mine is that you had that scene where Shooty gave David Tennant, a big hug and says it's okay. He's performing self-therapy. So the whole point is that now the Doctor can later rest all of this stuff. So he's able to rest and he's able to, retire and to look back on everything that's happened and lay that all to rest. And here we are going into season 1 with Shooty Gat, where we've got a Doctor who's laid everything to rest with his former self. So it's self-therapy.
And
So it's a massive.
Tennant does need it, doesn't he? Because he's always, since
He
half of his, he's just emoed himself out utterly. Yeah.
And he did a fair bit of emoing in this one. Here's my theory. My theory is about the engineering of how the science fiction works. And this is probably not something that's occurred to Russell T Davies. I think it's something that would have occurred to Stephen Moffat and would have got a sort of mention in the episode sort of tangentially so that you could make it work like this if you wanted to in your head canon, as it were. But this is something that kind of came up in a conversation fairly recently when we were talking about something else, which I'm not going to say what, because it's supposed to be a surprise on Christmas. So John, now wait for Matt to spoil it. So we were talking about how it is that the Doctor doesn't turn up when the Earth's in danger if one of the other teams is there, Sarah Jane, Class, Torchwood, whatever. And we one of us kind of said that's a bit of the flaw in the structure of how the universe works, because if the Earth's in danger, and certainly if it's a big danger, you'd expect the Doctor to turn up. But actually, after we finished that conversation, this was how I rationalized it, and I think this works for tonight. So bear with me. The TARDIS takes the Doctor where he needs to be. So if Torchwood is there, or Sarah Jane is there, or the team from Class is there, the TARDIS doesn't take him there because they've got it.
Well,
And
to
the
be
way
honest, if Torchwood are there, he needs to turn up.
Well, yeah, maybe. But you get the logic, right? If the TARDIS takes him where he needs to go, and the TARDIS can see the future, and the TARDIS can see that this problem in the future has been solved by Sarah Jane, the TARDIS doesn't need to take him there. And the way you can rationalize that into this situation is the two Doctors. There's the Ncuti Gatwa Doctor and there's the David Tennant Doctor. So the TARDIS knows that the Ncuti Gatwa Doctor is solving the problems and just takes the David Tennant Doctor to safe locations like New York for lunch, like Mars for lunch, whatever. The TARDIS that the Tennant Doctor's got no longer takes him to where there's danger, because the TARDIS, linked either through sort of like, whatever, or just because it knows that the Ncuti Gatwa Doctor has got this, the David Tennant Doctor just never needs to take him to danger anymore.
I tell you, there's a lovely
hate
sort of
that.
Paul Mars-esque series to make just a cozy Doctor Who series with that Tennant Doctor?
I mean,
Just
there isn't though, is there?
Yes, there is.
Because the
best
Doctor's
thing.
basically having a boring time on Earth, and that's well,
They could be solving
fundamentally-
no-scale mysteries like in Midsummer Murders or something.
Yeah,
Agatha
Doctors
Christie.
still have-
Yeah,
Doctors
exactly.
still
Why
have
not?
adventures.
Do
I
it.
just don't know what it does to. I don't know how. So it's a different thing for Doctor Who to do. It's not groundbreaking because I don't think it's going to have any effect other than maybe, as Simon says, it gives Ncuti Gatwa an excuse to be reset. But I think they could do that without explanation anyway. A new Doctor is a sort of
I
a
don't
reset.
think Tennant's been left behind to be, somebody who could come back for this reason or that reason, a spin-off series.
No, I don't think so either. So what's the
I
point?
think it's just. I mean, you said it before. There is precedent for this. This has happened before. It's Russell T Davies creating 2 Doctors, so the companion gets a Doctor for a happy ending. This is Donna's version of Rose on the beach with the human Doctor at the end of Journey's End. This is Donna's happy ending.
Yeah, I
That's
didn't
what
like
Russell
that
T Davies-
particularly.
But the thing is, what happens
Well, I
to
didn't
David
like
Tennant's
that
Doctor
either.
at the end of his life?
He,
Because
well, this is
Yeah, so the Tennant Doctor can see Rose growing old and dying. And then
mean-
sees
Oh, you're
Rose
always
growing
cheerful,
old.
Matt.
And well, I didn't mind. So I didn't mind the last 15 minutes. I just much preferred Neil Patrick Harris stuff, the Celestial, the toy maker stuff.
Oh no, he said Celestial.
You did say Celestial.
well, you did say we could be
the-
celestial.
The actual story, the bits of the episode where it had the actual story and the drama in it, I liked. The last 15 minutes seemed to go around in circles a bit to explain why David Tennant gets to retire on Earth with Donna. And I thought that was a bit of a waste of real estate in an expensive series.
No, I think RTD gets to write the end of Doctor Who
Yes.
well,
and surprises us, and how a 60-year-old program is surprising
It's-
us.
it
end,
kind of
yeah.
surprised me about how little it actually did, because we've had Timeless Children and Moffat does big things. This just didn't feel like it did anything. It just felt like it gave David Tennant an opportunity to be Doctor Eternal rather than his particular Doctor. It felt like a David Tennant thing rather than a Doctor thing to me.
It's
It
the
probably
end of
was, but that's how Russell
Well,
T Davies works, isn't it?
if
Yeah, I know,
can-
and
yeah.
and that kind of irritates me because I think you're watching a fictional episode about a character. I don't
I
think
thought
it
I'd
should
be
be.
the one
If
irritated
they'd
by
done,
this.
if they worked out a way of doing
At
this
least
with Tom Baker, then would we, as old school fans, have the same problem? Possibly
Well, they-
not,
well, they
because
did.
we'd say, "Oh, of all the Doctors, it should be Tom Baker who becomes Doctor Eternal."
Well, he-
But
he
instead,
is.
we've got the
He
Doctor
is,
who
'cause
is the
he's-
most popular amongst the new series. So
But Tom Baker's the curator, so this has effectively been done as before as well.
But effectively as well, in wider terms, meta terms, this is the end of that first new 21st century version of Doctor Who. The new one is a new jumping on point. It's the Disney era, so to speak.
Yeah.
So it's kind of metatextual, and you need to get to the end of that story
It's-
and let go that the new ones.
I
about to go.
absolutely understand that. I just think spending 15 minutes doing it is
Yeah,
just real estate in the
Self-indulgent.
story that I'd
But
rather
yeah.
have 10 minutes more of Neil Patrick Harris.
But Russell T
I don't
Davies
blame
does
you,
this
actually.
every time. He gets
I
to
know
the
he does.
climax sequence like half an hour into the episode, and then gets to the sort of end of the climactic sequence 10 minutes before the end, and then just has the Doctor talking to
And-
somebody for 10 minutes.
Yeah, and that's exactly why End of Time Part 2 got knocked down 2 points in my rankings, because it irritated me then, because I quite
It's
liked
not.
it up to that point.
Well, it's not even just End of Time Part 2. It happens in Rose, his very first episode.
Yeah.
You get to the Auton lair at the 25-minute mark, and you deal with the Autons at 35 minutes, and then you've got 7 minutes of the Doctor and Rose deciding whether she goes with him and
But
stuff.
that's because the story is Rose, not the Autons.
And he does this in every single episode. It happens in the end of
Because
the
he's
world.
character. He's fundamentally about character, not about the science fiction. The science fiction is the device to tell the story about the characters he wants to.
Or the
So for me-
actors playing them.
Yeah.
Exactly. Yeah.
So for me, it's about whether it's worthwhile and whether he justifies the way he works. So, for example, in the Giggle, I didn't think he justified it because you spent like 10 minutes or whatever it was inside this cubicle that he's done exactly before at the End of Time anyway, and it was just gobbledygook. and for me, it sort of was a fundamental hole in the heart of the episode. Here, I think he did justify it. So that last 15-minute sequence with the toy maker, I thought was fantastically well done. And then he does the other thing afterwards where you get 10 minutes of post-resolution character beats. And again, sometimes I don't think he justifies it. Here it did work for me. Because, like you say, it was about Tennant and Tate. I think it was probably as much about Tate as it was about Tennant. But yeah, you're also right in that kind of, what John said, effectively, this about that 10 minutes at the end there was kind of a coda for the Doctors up to this point, a sort of retirement point for the Doctors up to this point, so that a new kind of Doctor can come in and take over afterwards. And within the canon, it's just the next Doctor. We should probably tell Lee how this works because he's not heard this. And this is probably, and it wasn't in the episode either, so it'll probably be, as most of the explanations do seem to be these days, it's probably on Unleashed, which we're recording while it's on, so probably most
beyond
of
the commentary that they're going to release, I think.
Yeah. So Lee, the way it works is this, because the celestial toy maker, who is celestial, shoots the Tennant Doctor before the Tennant Doctor was due to regenerate, the next Doctor gets pulled forwards in time, but because he wasn't due to regenerate, he doesn't. So both Doctors exist at the same time. And what happens is, when Tennant gets to the end of his life, whatever it is, as it exists now, at the point of his regeneration in the future, that's when he gets pulled back to this point in time to become Ncuti Gatwa. So it becomes like a causal loop sort of thing. So a closed loop. So the Tennant Doctor comes back to this point in time to regenerate into Ncuti Gatwa as part of that bi-generation thing.
So Ncuti's already got all the memories of whatever this Tennant Earth Doctor's going to have for however long.
And that feeds in again to the fact that this Doctor isn't going to have adventures, because that's why Ncuti Gatwa is saying to him, I've got this, you go off and retire, have a nice life. I'm going to take it.
And it's emotionally intelligent as well.
Yeah.
Ten's already veering towards that, but that kind of rehab period, yeah.
I'm just enjoying the fact that I can be enthused about Russell T Davies doing one of his mad things, because as like it don't work for me, and this one did.
But then at this point, should we move on to what we think about Ncuti Gatwa? Because it's a natural point to go on.
Can I just say one more thing that 15 minutes as well in story terms was the end brackets on the beginning bracket of David Tennant returning. The fact that he supposedly came home, so in that respect, it made a lot of sense.
Yeah, he only had 3 episodes, so it made sense that at the end he would have that stuff, I guess.
Do we know why? Do we know why he regenerated into his clothes?
That wasn't explained.
No.
Well, the first Doctor and the second Doctor did regenerate into different clothes.
Just wondering if there was an explanation for it.
No. To be fair,
Russell T Davies didn't want David Tennant in drag, effectively. I mean, that's true.
The Master in drag for the whole episode.
Yeah.
Like there wasn't much of an explanation really for the face, because the reason why he regenerated into David Tennant was because David Tennant and Catherine Tate wanted to come back. It's all off-camera stuff, and I'm glad he didn't try and give it some stupid sci-fi explanation, because I think I'd have been pissed off with the sci-fi.
It's
just the TARDIS wardrobe.
Yeah.
The TARDIS wardrobe. It's going, oh, is that face? Hang on, let me just go. Yeah, got that. You have that.
Yeah, as John says, I'd rather have a character explanation than some, nonsense sci-fi explanation.
That was quite good, actually.
Ncuti Gatwa, then. Go on, then, Lee.
Yeah. What? What do you want
I'll
to say?
tell you one thing about it that I really, really liked, and that I think might end up having pissed a lot of people off, is the fact that he's doing it in basically a kind of African accent.
Is he?
So he's not doing it in straightforward English, is he?
Oh no, yeah, I suppose, yeah.
Scottish for a start, so no.
Yeah, Scottish, yeah.
Is this his?
But he wasn't doing it in any kind of a Scottish accent.
Is this his true accent though? I don't know him as a person. Yeah,
it is, isn't it? Yeah.
No, I think it was overemphasized. I think it was a deliberate choice, because when he's spoken
in interviews, he's spoken with this Scottish accent with a sort of a tinge of, God, which country does his parents
Rwanda.
Rwanda, so a tinge of a sort of Rwandan accent.
It's great. I love it. When he says, "What the hell's going on here?" Absolutely brilliant. So good.
It's nice to see that explained, that moment. Oh, you didn't see the trailers for this?
No, I didn't see any trailers.
Okay, there we go.
I didn't. I didn't know this was going to happen. I didn't know anything about this, but yeah. So it was. What I really like, just very, very quickly, and I know you're going to all say this before me, so I'm going to get in there before you in that timey-wimey way.
It's all right, because the thing about this conversation is we could just have the conversation. It can just go where it needs to.
What about
Iain? What did you think?
What about the Flash Gordon moment?
What about the what?
I'm very honoured to be on my first episode with Lee, so I would love to hear about the Flash Gordon moment.
The tooth at the end, you know, that when they come
in,
it was it was Ming the Merciless.
It was also like the ring
Russell
from
T Davis.
Time Lords.
Yeah,
cool.
I thought you were going to say it was like the American football scene.
There is that too. And the Avengers. We've got the Avengers Tower.
That.
What's that about? Anyway, Shooty Gatwa.
I
absolutely
that
loved.
Was superimposed. That was an afterthought as a joke. That was obviously like the woman would have been stood half off the heliport as she's picking up. Sorry.
Yeah, and actually it's the same hand.
Yeah,
that's been used before.
I mean, after last week, Wild Blue Yonder, what that could be is actually a little teaser that the creatures from Wild Blue Yonder have also made it through with the Celestial Toymaker, and one of them's just reached up from down on the ground all that far below.
I'll tell you what it is. No, it's David Tennant's Doctor in drag, who's been dragged through time from
literally
the generation.
Dragged. Yeah. Shooty Gatwa. He was Shooty Gatwa. I mean, Sex Education, all the other stuff I've seen of him. It's his character in there, but toned down. And I like it. I just like the way he is. I like his use of diction. It's really it's right. It's now, isn't it? But the sort of thing like, oh, close the doors, love, or whatever it is he says at the end. You know, you can go. I like that. I like that curtness that he's got. He's got a bit of power. He's going to have power with the enemies when they come up against him. He's going to be going, yeah, I don't think so, mate. We're doing this, and I like that. You know, that's the thing that we didn't really get with Jodie, I don't think. So yeah, he's hitting the buttons already pretty quickly, and he's still got that Doctor streak about him. So yeah, I'm looking forward to this.
One thing I really liked is in between all that stuff, he had a couple of moments of proper seriousness, and he properly sold the seriousness. And I like a Doctor who can properly sell the seriousness.
Yeah, and he sold the seriousness without trousers on. So the fact that he was doing all of this without trousers on, and it didn't feel silly to me. It didn't feel like he was self-conscious or embarrassed by it. That's
natural.
That's a good sign.
It took me a little.
He just doesn't care about what he looks like.
It took me a little time to realise why he didn't have trousers.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
And I was like, oh yeah, because they split the clothes.
Yeah, but they were both wearing shirts.
They were both wearing shirts.
No, he was. Tennant was wearing an undershirt, like a vest.
Yeah,
little vest.
Oh right.
Oh, okay.
So Gatwa got the proper shirt, and then Tennant got the waistcoat.
So hang on,
I thought they just split his clothes from the waist down because that was the point at which they
wearing
stopped.
2 pairs of pants.
Yeah, no.
That whole sequence would have been so much worse if it was Tennant without his trousers on. I think, you know, love the man.
That would have been unpleasant.
Do you know what? Something occurred to me while I was watching it is when they got the second TARDIS and they showed that there was a ramp at the front. I thought, oh, they're kind of making out that Tennant's going to retire and everything like that, and I thought they'd got a ramp for his mobility scooter.
Because it turned out to be Shooty Gatwa's TARDIS, didn't it?
Yeah,
that was just for a second. I thought, oh, why have they given Tennant's TARDIS the thing when his TARDIS is going to be basically parked a lot of the time? But then, of course, he was just showing Tennant around the new TARDIS, which is exactly the same as Tennant's TARDIS, except with the
which is what I think I said in the first episode of these specials, didn't I? That all that ramping around is designed to be disable access. So when he flipped out at the front, I went, yeah, that's.
It's so that if Davros ever takes a trip in the TARDIS, he'll be able to.
Not this Davros.
No, maybe not.
Won't be on screen, but taking Wilf out in his TARDIS, he's got to stick another one for that.
Oh, that would have been great, wouldn't it?
Yes, of course, no Wilf in this episode. Iain,
I think I was going. Sorry, can I just? I think Lee makes a really good point with the fact that Shooty stamps some authority on the part. because I was concerned that we're getting a kind of diluted premiere for Ncuti's Doctor alongside David Tennant, the most popular Doctor. So that's a really hard act, and I think for him to stamp some authority on that and say, no, hang on a minute, I am the Doctor. I'm not going to show any doubt in this at all. And this is how it continues.
It lets Ncuti hit the ground running at Christmas. You don't have what you've had with all the previous Doctors in this, which is that post-regeneration story. There's nothing like that. So
well, and the other thing is, because that last 15 minutes was more about Tennant than it was about Gatwa, it let you have 15 minutes of Gatwa without kind of giving everything away. So, because that would have been the big problem, is that you get to Christmas and everybody's basically already seen what the Doctor's like. And Lee, you probably didn't watch the trailer afterwards.
No.
You'll have to do fingers in ears when we talk about the trailer.
Oh.
No, not yet, but in a minute. But the trailer afterwards also I think was kind of, so I'm not going to say anything that was in it because Lee's still listening, but the trailer afterwards seemed to me like it was deliberately geared towards saying, if you think you've seen Ncuti Gatwa's Doctor in these 15 minutes, that's not the Doctor that he's going to be. That's just an aspect of him, and there's a lot more to come. And
there's a scene that's referred to in DWM, which I went, okay, this is going to be in the trailer. Yes, it is, and it's more than I expected.
Way more.
In a good way. It's brilliant.
It strikes me that it allows the Christmas special to basically be Rose, to be exactly what Rose is, because Eccleston and Rose was, we assume, or pretended to be newly regenerated, but not unstable. So, like Lee said, hit the ground, or somebody said, probably not Lee, because it was, it made sense. Hit the ground running and energy, and that's kind of, But they did the same with. They did the same with Tennant coming back. There wasn't the sort of post-regeneration trauma with Starbeast.
Got on with it.
So maybe they just, if they want to, they just abandon it.
With the episode Rose, you basically get a brand new Doctor, but in the fictional terms, he's already established to some extent. So the introduction is an introduction to her, and that's kind of what we'll get at Christmas, isn't it? We'll be introduced to Ruby Sunday, and the Doctor is already established, but we just haven't really seen him yet, or not very much of him. So we can get to know him via the concept of getting to meet her. So yeah, basically the same sort of thing. Iain's not been able to speak for ages, mainly because of his lunch, right? Who gets lunch while they're on a podcast?
I'm trying to get my wine refilled, but she's not answering the text message.
She's had a migraine, for goodness sake. She's right now.
Iain,
hello.
Did you like Ncuti Gatwa?
I loved him. Having got through the last 3 or 4 years without ever watching Sex Education, I finally started watching it about, 3 weeks ago, and I could never imagine him as the Doctor, but he was one of the most kind of charismatic and lovely people to watch, and he was fine in this. I'm thinking it was a little bit downplayed, and as we might have seen, as might be alluded to, it's going to be a little bit more over the top maybe sometimes, but I think he's going to be very good. Thanks, love.
Timing impeccable.
All right, darling.
So should we talk a bit about Melanie Bush, or has anybody got anything else they want to? I mean, this conversation is going to go round in circles anyway, so there's no.
Can we start talking about the first 45 minutes so I can be enthusiastic? Mel was great. She's really good. I mean, Bonnie Langford's a really good actress. It felt like they sort of dropped her.
She is now.
I think she was there.
I think admit she wasn't in that because she didn't know what to do. She didn't have a character to play.
I think
but that's bad direction, not bad acting.
Yeah, but also bad writing. And that's a cliche now to say, it's not the actor's fault, it's just bad writing. But I think possibly when you're dealing with Pip and Jane Baker, maybe it's not the best. And production and direction.
Yeah, somebody needs to take control and say, this is what has to happen, this is what you need to do, and nobody did. So she was left floundering. She was basically mostly a stage actress with a child television career, and she was left without direction. And I think that's always been regarded as the problem, is that she wasn't directed not to play it like she was on the stage.
On the other hand, Delta and the Bannermen is a mini 1980s masterpiece.
Probably the best single story of the entire classic run.
It's amazing. What a story that is.
I'm not rising to it.
But it's. I don't think he is taking the piss, but I don't. But what I think the point that is a serious point is the Mel who's in Delta and the Bannermen is light years away from the one who's in Terror of the Vervoids. She's a really calm, cool, collected character, and the performance is way, way better. Probably because maybe the entire thing's out on location, so she's able to judge her performance better. And also, I think probably because Chris Clough, I think, is actually a pretty good director generally. He's had time to bed in now, and he's had time to learn what a Doctor Who is and shouldn't be now. And I think his direction in Delta and the Bannermen of the actors is a lot better than his direction was in. Well, in fact, it was him at the end of Trial Over Time Lord, wasn't it? The last 6 episodes, I think. Anyway, yes, her character here, I thought was a lovely way to update the character after all this time. I'm not entirely sure all that conversation about Sablon Blitz was really necessary.
I think it was.
But it was fun.
Yeah.
But I loved the fact that the character felt like the same person 30 years older, because often the temptation is either to make it the same person and forget the fact that 30 years have passed because we didn't see it, or else to try and make it the same person 30 years older and accidentally make it an entirely different character. I think that happens way more often than it really should, and it doesn't happen here. It felt really
on paper, she's a computer programmer, beyond belief. She's got great IQ. In the early Doctor Who's, she wasn't like that. None of us could actually believe that, but we know since Big Finish, as we configurate her character a little bit more, this is the new Mel. This is the Mel that should have been, really, because she is an intelligent computer expert. So they're putting her to good use. I think they did miss a little trick though, because she is a stage dancer, actor, singer. They did use a voice, but wouldn't it have been great if the toy maker had pulled her up and they danced a bit, properly danced, and did a bit of
that's what I thought
singing.
Was going to happen.
Yeah, it would have worked, wouldn't it? But anyway.
Well, they upset our expectations by doing it with Kate Stewart instead, right? I mean, a little bit. Yeah.
There would have been a Ginger Spice joke if she'd been dancing to that. So.
Had to be in there.
The best scene.
I thought it was a little bit. I thought it was a little bit off to upstage her by having the Doctor say O'Donnell is the best person with a keyboard in this room, and I'm thinking, no, it's Mel. But
no,
no, that's typing speed.
Yes,
that's not anything to do with input speed. Not computer. I tell you what I really liked was we don't necessarily see the downsides of time travel with this. And Mel's coming back. She's like, great, I'm going to go home. 30 years later, actually, I'm out of time. And you don't often see that in Doctor Who with the companions. That's really nicely done.
Right. And it was the same story with the Doctor. So it was about both of them going home, and Mel went home and found out she was an orphan and didn't have a life. What's the Doctor going to do? Not to drag the conversation back to David Tennant, because he's had enough.
She becomes she becomes another precedent for him, doesn't she?
Yeah. So it's find your family. That's very much part of Russell T Davies' Doctor Who all the way. It's a family we find, which is as important as the one we've got.
And I tell you, at the moment where Mel turns up at that sort of dinner table in the garden at the end, I thought that was just a really lovely moment.
Yeah.
Mm. It was just nice. It was a surprise to see Mel back.
It might have been for you.
It was.
Oh, no,
because I was like, who's he talking to? Oh my God, it's Mel.
Oh God, it's really difficult to do a podcast as Lee, who doesn't know what's going to happen.
Yes, but don't you think I'm the kid of the podcast? Because that means that the kids don't care or watch. Do they? Or maybe they do actually.
Yeah, they'll know everything.
Kids want to know everything. Yeah. I had a 9-year-old sitting on the chair with me. What's going on, Dad? What's going to happen, Dad? How's this going to sort itself out, Dad? What's happening next, Dad? Why is he here, Dad? How's he going to get rid of Finn, Dad?
Yeah,
I don't know. This episode's
come on,
never
Joe.
been on
You've got inside information. You know what's happening. You could have told him. That's just cruel.
I don't know how to break this to you, Lee. You're not the kid of the podcast. You're the 90-year-old of the podcast who got.
You're the bath chair of the podcast.
No idea what's going to happen next. No idea what's happened before.
And I still can't remember.
Happy.
So
Christmas,
what about?
Lee.
Well, we've not talked about the toy maker yet, have we? Neil Patrick Harris.
So good.
I thought they overdid the sort of German thing a little bit.
Wasn't that the point though?
Yes,
did
because
think it, yeah.
wasn't he supposed to have this racism edge? Because he says right at the beginning to the guy, "Oh, Sunnier climes." He's obviously just a nasty person, right? So, and he was kind of racist in its character in the day.
The whole point is it was Russell T Davies addressing, is the Celestial Toymaker racist? Yes, he is.
Yeah,
You know,
totally.
Yes.
But not
Yeah,
how
not
you
a
thought he was.
conception.
Yeah.
I loved that gold tooth moment as well. I thought I was perfectly sold.
Yeah, there's some comedy in there, but I mean, he's a nasty piece of work, and so cold and has no empathy whatsoever. I thought what was interesting and nice is the bit where the Doctor's offering to play games with him for the end of time just to save Earth. And there's kind of a moment where you almost think that he's going to say yes, and then the Doctor might try something funny or different or trick him or whatever. But then he just goes, "Yeah, I quite like this. This is fun."
So I thought
Beautiful acting.
I thought that was going. I mean, obviously we were supposed to think that might be the ending, but having watched the second season of Loki, spoiler alert, I thought there was going to be an ending similar to that.
Okay.
Excuse me.
Not that kind of spoiler, Lee.
No.
Spoilers for Loki.
If anything, I'm spoiling Loki season 2 a little bit.
I've seen it. Don't worry. Keep
But
going.
there's an ending. The ending to that is about sacrifice, and it's about, you know, I mean, it would have been a dark ending, and it probably would have been a mistake. But I thought that's where it was going.
I mean, you know, if once he split from shooting, from himself, and then he did that speech,
Yeah.
you'd be going, "Oh, maybe this is what this Doctor's here for, is to take him away, no matter what." But no, of course, that wouldn't have happened. But it's much more fun watching him fold himself up into a box, anyway.
That was great. There's some lovely moments here.
Doctor Who's got its cue, hasn't it?
Yeah, and I loved his domain as well. That stuff with the Stooky family puppets was glorious.
And it did go into the part. So JR was slightly right when he talked about this being the historical episode.
There was about
did
half
go
an
into
hour in the
past.
past, but to be
Yeah.
fair, most of that was in the Toymaker's domain. But yeah, it was about half and half, wasn't it? Really?
Yeah, I like the Toymaker's domain. I think this episode overstated how this has never happened in Doctor Who before, or at least because this is the sort of thing like the Doctor's always encountering people like the Toymaker in Stephen Moffat's times and in Chris Chibnall's times. It's only Russell T Davies who kind of was reluctant to go for the super gods and the alternative entities. So again, it's a little bit like Russell T Davies hasn't done this before, but you know, I mean, the God complex. This was pretty much the God complex for that half an hour.
I think at the start he very much hemmed himself in with he didn't want anyone to think Doctor Who was too silly. But now he's got, you know, nearly 20 years to play with. He doesn't even have to think about that. The casual viewer will accept almost anything from Doctor Who the way it goes.
And he's seen that Stephen Moffat has gone to those extremes and it's worked. So Russell T Davies can learn from Stephen Moffat.
Well, and also,
Chris Chibnall.
And Chris Chibnall. Yeah, it takes you away.
But this is definitely Russell T Davies after Stephen Moffat and Chris Chibnall, and he's seen how other people can do modern Doctor Who, and he's learned from them.
That's what we just said.
Sorry?
That's exactly what we just said.
Yeah, no, because I was going to carry on.
Oh, okay.
Carry on the point. But he has learned from them, but he does, I think, what Stephen Moffat did when Russell T Davies was the one just before him, is he takes some of the things they do, and it's not just that he puts his own spin on them, but he kind of riposts. It's almost like a little fencing match where Russell T Davies does a thing, then Stephen Moffat sort of swishes and says, "I can do that better," And then now it comes back to Russell T Davies, who swishes back and says, "Oh, and I can improve on what you did." And it's become like this.
What are they swishing?
Fencing match. Matt.
Oh, okay, that's fine. Sorry.
Rapiers, Matt. Rapiers.
Yeah.
It's a relief.
But the other thing is, as well, I think Russell T Davies is quite cleverly purposing this for the Disney audience. So with the Disney audience, you've got the Marvel universe is like basically set on Earth, but with superhuman people on Earth, and that's its shtick. It's larger than life human characters with powers that you don't normally get with regular people, and it's a fantasy, and that's its shtick. Is that it's kind of, despite the gender balance or whatever, it's sort of slightly the macho universe within the sort of Disney fantasy universes. The Star Wars universe is the space opera fantasy universe. So it's the space, it's the machines. It's got the Jedi stuff as well, but it's about the sort of dichotomy between the mind and the machine. And it's, so the Star Wars is the space opera, which slightly more leans into the science. I think what Russell T Davies has very cutely done here is he's leaned into the silly. So Russell T Davies has emphasized the silly. The Star Beast, the long arms and the growing copies of the Doctor and Donna. And here you've got the Celestial toy maker going mad, and you've got puppets and all these kind of stuff like this. So it's a little bit like Charlie Kaufman, but also it's very much just, you know, the dolls that sort of come to life, the marionettes that come to life.
There's a lot of new grotesque in vaudeville that's come in the last 3 episodes.
But I don't think it's just vaudeville. I think it's deliberately cutesy. I think it's deliberately setting itself against those other things and saying this is serious, but it's silly, in a way that the sort of superhero stuff is this is silly, but it's serious. Instead, here it's this is serious, but it's silly. So the superhero stuff takes something that's silly and makes you think of it in a serious way. This is taking something serious and making you think of it in a silly way. Hence things like the Star Beast, Beep the Meep, and hence things like dolls that are sort of walking around of their own volition and talking and stuff. I think.
How good was that scene with the doll, though?
Oh, terrific. But just to finish that, and Lee, I'm not going to spoil anything, but what we do know about the Shooty Gatwa stuff, what we've seen is it carries on in this vein. So I think it's a very deliberate choice on Russell T Davies's behalf to repurpose Doctor Who as a kind of acceptable, fun, but silly adventure.
I preferred the scene with the marionette, with the human head.
Oh yeah, that was
because that's straight out of Nightmare on Elm Street 3. That's virtually shot by shot, because Nightmare on Elm Street 3 has Freddy Krueger, giant Freddy Krueger, looking into the room from above. Right. Pulling up, and in this occasion, pulling up somebody by their own sinews.
That's right.
To become a marionette puppet.
Speaking of Nightmare on Elm Street 3, why was Rachel Talalay thrown away on the Star Beast, which was the most generic of the 3 episodes? Wouldn't Rachel Talalay in Wild Blue Yonder have been an amazing fit? Wouldn't she have been astonishing on this? Why was she thrown away on the Star Beast? I know.
The Giggle?
I thought the director here did very well on it.
Yeah.
Oh, yes, she did. I mean, the direction on all 3 has been, above par, whatever. But can you imagine what this would have been like in Rachel Talalay's hands? It would have been even weirder and spookier. Can you imagine what Wild Blue Yonder would have been like if it had been done by the director of Dark Water and World Enough and Time? Can you imagine that? But anyway.
So I have a question. This is now the 3rd time we've had the villain turning up and doing a big song and dance number. Is this something that's going to happen like every year now?
It's a Russell T Davies thing, isn't it?
There will be an episode, not in this season coming, but I'm definitely now after, because I think he said it, didn't he? Russell T Davies went, oh yeah, maybe we'll get them all singing and dancing, and I was like, oh no. But actually,
Lee, you better take your.
You might find something out on Monday, Lee. You might need to avoid stuff.
But
turn the internet off for the next fortnight, Lee.
But I trust RTD to get it right, because his brain works in a brilliant way. And if he'd have turned that entire scene into a song and dance with everybody singing and the puppet, because he is a puppet master. In fact, I'm surprised he didn't go ahead and do that. It was quite insular that it was all about.
Because then it would have really been like that scene in The Mask. instead of being a bit like it.
Yeah, maybe. Yeah.
Anyway,
You know the one I
Lee,
mean?
I'm gonna spoil something for you now. No, don't take your ears out because there's no way
My
you'll
ears
avoid
out?
this. Don't take your earphones out. There's no way you'll avoid this, so you might as well just learn it now. on
Like
air.
that.
He's confounded you again, JR.
Let me know when.
The thing is, Lee,
That's
this
my
is
headphones
something that is going massively public in a way that is unavoidable.
on. I can avoid
So
it.
I might as
I'm
well
pretty
just tell
good.
you. Well, the song from the
Back me up,
Christmas
boys.
special is out on Monday.
I don't even listen to the radio. Where am I going to hear this? It's going to be. Is it going
It's
to come
gonna
out? Is
be-
it?
It's
Is it
going to
comic
be.
relief?
Lee gets all
It
his
is
news.
actually. It is
Lee gets
coming
all
out,
his news
I mean-
coded through the church bells of Kenton.
And pigeons.
He just
I
listens
was
to the
just
ringing.
astonished that in this day and age of Twitter and Facebook and Blue Sky and everything else, Lee thinks the only place you're going to hear a song is on the radio.
Lee listens to the church bells.
you know
and it
what?
tells him the Russians are liberating Berlin.
I was a
We're
DJ.
gonna
Come on.
get
Good
another
heavens.
episode. We need to do an
Mr.
episode like the
Hitler
Likely
has
Lads, which
committed
is Lee
suicide.
just avoiding spoilers. Just
I
like
mean, I'm not going to say anything else about it, but that is one thing that Lee is never going to avoid, right?
No, I will hear the song.
Yeah.
You know, they did. RTD had loads of songs for the Christmas special. Loads were released, weren't they, in the past? So,
they
Yeah,
weren't
I'll-
released though; they were only on the soundtrack.
oh, they weren't released. Oh, of course they
No.
weren't. Ooh, number one.
I don't think so.
Next to the next,
Is it
next to
by
the
Lad
next sausage
Baby?
roll song.
I did see several fans saying, let's try and make this Christmas number one. And I'm thinking, do you understand how the charts work? Because that
Not
is
these days,
not
they
how it
don't.
works.
Nobody understands how the charts work anymore, or even
Well,
if they're still a thing.
Hello. The
Let's all
answer.
buy this song, all 5,000 of us.
Oh, to make me happy though, there's no Lad Baby single this Christmas. You're all right.
If
Brilliant.
they're not, oh, we've got this
They
instead.
retired apparently. You said.
Good. Phew. Although I don't think I've actually ever heard any of their songs, but I've
You
heard what
lucky,
they're about.
lucky.
So
How can you, in this day and age of blue
Of
sky,
Twitter and Blue
Twitter
Sky,
everything,
have never-
not have heard any of the Lad Baby songs?
shall I tell you, Lee? Because my social media feeds are not filled with people who repost Lad Baby, but your social media feeds are filled with people who repost Doctor Who.
No, they're not at the moment. I tell you.
That's what,
Ejected
did you
most
say you want to
people
do a
now.
Lad Baby? If I hear a Lad Baby song, well,
No, you are right, Jared. There are more people on my feed into Doctor Who than there are on your feed into Lad Baby. That's true. But not anymore. So they're all dead to me now.
Lad Baby are dead. Oh my god! You heard it here first.
Doctor Who fans. No. Talking of which, that it does bring up fan base, doesn't it? In this a few times.
Oh yeah, there was a lot about modern day and social media. That is something else that Russell T Davies is doing this time around that he didn't quite really do last time. I think Russell T Davies has always been a writer whose episodes are about something, but often that thing is either nebulous or dated in some way. Now he's very much up to the minute and making issue-led Doctor Who in a way, I think. And
what was it? Invasion of the Gammons.
yeah, this
Yeah.
was very much about the Gammons, really, wasn't it?
Bits about
I mean-
anti-vaxxers as well.
And
Except you
that
didn't
wonderful moment with Donna where the Prime Minister's saying, oh, why should I care about you? And she just goes, nothing's changed. And that was the best bit of the whole thing.
Well, no, but
Most
the
accurate.
message, of this episode is everybody thinks they're right and everybody doubles down, and that's the thing. We live in the double down generation, don't we? If you say to somebody, "I've got a counter argument," see Matt pissing himself because he never listens to the counter argument anyway.
No, I do. I'm laughing because you're the most blocked man on Twitter, JR. Because the number of arguments you've got into.
Hang
There's a
on
reason-
Twitter,
there's a
on
reason
Gallifrey
I've
Base, on
demonstrated
Blue
this
Sky,
space
on
between
Threads, on Facebook.
The Blue Box podcast is out there on episode 2 right now. Everyone's favourite in space.
I think that was slightly different.
Yeah.
Are you saying JR's the toy maker? And we're all
No.
playing his game.
But the
I
point being-
like that bit of the episode. I didn't. they didn't show very much of it, but that's fine because they talked about how the Earth was in crisis and collapsing from the top of a big tower. But
They at
it's
least
all right.
showed it. They at least
they
showed it first, and it was a very expensive looking scene with a shed load of extras, and not just the 30 quid a day extras, but the 50 quid a day extras, being the ones who've been given direction and so get
It's at least 90 quid a day now.
Yeah, I'm talking. But yeah,
rates gone up since you were young.
But can you imagine Russell T Davies doing that? And, you know, the stuff he's dealt with in the last couple of episodes, you know, the way the sort of first episode, the Star Beast resolves, the Russell T Davies of the sort of 2005 to 2009 was the one who, when he took the first black companion into the past, just said, oh, just walk around like you're white and nobody will notice. I mean, he was shoving issues under the carpet back in 2006, 2000. It's here, Matt.
Okay.
He was shoving issues under the carpet back then and avoiding them. And the only time an issue like that ever did raise its head was briefly in an episode that Paul Cornell wrote. So this is very nice to see, I think. I'm fully on board with this kind of stuff.
I think he's a bit... Being referred to as hubris, though, on the part of the Doctor. It's an assumption, and it's meant to make you undermine the Doctor. But yes, I do generally agree.
But the reason it's there, the hubris on the Doctor's behalf is an excuse for the fact that the writer doesn't want to get into it.
And yeah, and Russell's, again, we saw this all the way through with everything, was particularly the puppet show of, you know, the last 13 years as well. It's informed by everything that's gone on, as we said. I love that puppet show.
Yeah,
it's fine. It's fine.
It only lacked for a monoid, but we got that in 2010 or whenever it was, didn't
2013, wasn't it? Time of the Doctor?
13, yeah, Time of the Doctor.
I know my monoids.
I think I'm fine.
I think I was at the wrong end of Matt for a minute there, but it's over. John pulled me out.
I'm glad it's not visual. Oh, it is.
Yeah, watching the YouTube, they'll be in for a treat.
Oh yeah, people are not going to. Do we think people are going to react badly to this? I thought the way it was done.
Well, it's aiming at the gammons, isn't it? It's aiming at the people that have got issues with change and you know, being modern and just getting rid of the past, which is actually, it is out of date and it's wrong. And you know, I think people that are going to be complaining about any aspect of it, they'll be scrutinised now, because if you complain about a particular part of it, that actually, that's not what's being accepted now, the future's going to change, then you are going to outdate yourself on those threads instantly. So they're cancelling them. They'll be cancelling themselves. Iain.
I was going to say, for about 10 minutes after the episode ended, I was kind of offside, and I always knew I was going to be, because we've all been spoiled about how this was going to go. And I thought, is the next Doctor really the same character as the one that I've been following since I started watching in 19... or, you know, is this a jumping off point, really? Do I have to still give a shit about this guy? But, you know, it's taken me 10 minutes to think, no, it's just Doctor Who. There will be people who find themselves in a very tricky position now, because there will be those who go, this doesn't count, or this isn't the right bit of the Doctor that we're following from now on. But if you're critical of the next Doctor because he's played by Ncuti Gatwa, you're finishing yourself. So,
but also, are they going to think that the way it was done, has it really changed anything? It's not like the Timeless Children, which I don't agree with them, but I can understand people being uncomfortable with Doctors before Hartnell. But it's not like that. Ncuti Gatwa is still presented as the next Doctor.
Sure.
There was just a bit of a weird blobby thing happening.
But if David Tennant is still the Doctor that we've all been watching since way back when, then is the Ncuti branch of that, you know, essential to follow? And in short, what I'm asking is, what has Ian Levine said in the last half hour?
But also,
I can't have a look now. Hang on.
And while John does that, but also, here's the other thing, is that the number of Doctor Who fans who've stayed Doctor Who fans into middle age is kind of like in the low tens of thousands, or maybe the high tens of thousands, but it's just a very small fraction of the. And here's the thing, when we were at school or whatever, or when I was at school, when I was 8, 9, most of the kids in the school watched Doctor Who. When I was 12, 13, maybe a third of them watched Doctor Who. When I was 15, 16, hardly any of them watched Doctor Who. Doctor Who is a programme that refreshes and renews its audience. This is just another refresh, renew point. People will stop watching now, but Shooty Gatwa's just come on board with 2 million Instagram followers or whatever. For everybody who stops watching at this point, 3 or 4 maybe will start watching instead. So
Iain Levine said no. Iain Levine said nothing, but he has told former member of this parish, Mark Cockram, in the last couple of days to go fuck himself.
Oh, okay.
Nice.
How can you say that to Mark Cockram? He's a
I
Scotty
have got the
pie.
explicit rating on his video now, aren't I?
Sorry.
Mark Cockram.
I'm taking against Iain Levine
Iain
more
Levine?
and more with every passing day.
Is this true?
Age
That's
is not
amazing.
suiting him well.
I was going to say, is anyone would get nitpicking about whether the Shooty Doctor is the real Doctor or whether it's David? Is actually, if you think back to Heaven Sent, that it's not the real Doctor anyway, is it?
No, it's not.
Because he was recreated.
This
so
is
many
a good
times.
point. And
I
Oh,
need
well,
to go back to how the transmats work, because the skin of that Doctor, the physical substance, is not at the other end.
I mean, you're right. I'm quite thick, and it took me 10 minutes to make peace with it and move on because it's a kids' show, and who gives a damn?
I get it.
But there will be people, I think, who will feel that.
Yeah.
You don't have to say gives a damn. John's broken the explicit barrier and pushed through to the other side.
What you're saying is he like Baby Groot?
I mean,
we've just been talking about Lad Baby, haven't we?
To be fair, I went on motherfucking Twitter after the episode finished, and most of the motherfucking comments were about the Doctor's trousers, and that I was surprised. I thought there would be more sort of contention about, this ruins the canon has been destroyed and the mythology has been destroyed. But
as someone who very rarely wears trousers, I was very pleased to see that. And it's David Tennant in his PJs again doing Arthur Dent from the Christmas Invasion. It was just.
There was this
lovely.
moment of Christmas Invasion. There was the Satsuma moment, right? Where he throws, he's obviously very good at throwing, and then they're on this big Avengers platform, which looks just like the Sycorax's platform, doesn't it? So there is this nice callback. There's lots of little bits and pieces in this.
Hang on a minute. So with the distribution of clothes, with the distribution of clothes, does that then mean that effectively David Tennant was going commando at the end of the scene?
Yes, it does.
Okay,
who had the socks and who had the shoes?
Well, Tennant was barefoot.
He was,
right. So Shooty got the footwear.
Pay attention, Iain.
Unless Tennant was wearing 2 pairs of
put
pants
some trousers on.
I will not, sir. I will not.
I know that the thrush.
He was wearing 2 shirts, John.
So
that's true. He comes prepared.
There were callbacks, but this episode was Russell T Davies repeating himself to the nth degree, wasn't it? But I mean,
it's a finale. You're supposed to. Moffat always, call back as well.
I'm not calling
if you're
back.
doing a finale, a good writer,
repeating the Sycorax platform, repeating the throwing of the Satsuma, repeating the sort of second Doctor that gets to go off and live with the companion.
It's deliberate.
I just thought he couldn't do the trilogic game because that's not dynamic enough for the end of a modern episode of Doctor Who. So he had to come up with a game that was dynamic, and Catch was what he came up with.
Yeah, but
it was fine, and it was fine, and it was fun, but it was a little bit sort of, well, the journey was good, so let's not worry too much about how they defeat the Toymaker. They throw a ball at him, and he drops the ball.
I just thought of another thing, which is in the Christmas Invasion, the Doctor gets his hand cut off and grows another one. And I think that's probably, if we're okay with that, we should be okay with By Generation.
Yeah.
Because it's just another.
I think we are okay with By Generation.
He's trying to convince himself.
I am, yeah.
Well, there's the
and by extension, any listeners who are not convinced. So it's a fair comment.
Yeah,
The Watcher was an odd experience, wasn't it, for all of us? We still don't really know what that was about. And
Planet of the Spiders, where Kan Po regenerates into Cho Jae, who's been around for the last 6 episodes as a projection, apparently. But nevertheless, he is still the
it's about the new man. Yeah, it's about the new man, isn't it? The whole thing.
And so
but
was
it's philosophy.
So was this.
This was a brilliant regeneration, really clever, really funny, and we've never had the kind of two current doctors talking to each other. You don't have the one who's just regenerated talking to the other one, which is
Telephone
brilliant.
call
Apart from when
the-
Capaldi did
Apart from the
deep
telephone
breath.
call,
Deep breath.
You're right. You're right.
But that
You're
was
right.
on phone.
That was quite nice actually, but I felt we didn't need
No, I
that.
hated
Actually.
that. I
No,
thought
no,
this was much better than that.
I like the idea. I just didn't think we needed it. So yeah, kind of agree, but don't agree.
It
but,
was a nonsense phone call. Well, the reason for it was nonsense.
Yeah.
Oh, I'm old now. Must make sure that everybody's okay with that. And instead, what it did was it threw a lampshade around it.
Whereas
Rather
this
than
didn't.
yeah.
This was equal, wasn't it? It felt
No,
really good.
this was a proper handing over of the baton.
Did we
Between
find
two actors who were actually able to hand the bat over on between one another there on the screen? I thought it was a very good way to do it. A really good way.
It's very nicely emphasised that Shooty is the superior doctor here, so to speak. The older doctor who has seniority.
Yeah, he takes seniority, absolutely. And Tennant becomes the retiree. It may be an early retirement than he planned on doing, but nevertheless, he becomes the retiree as the other guy takes over, hands over the baton.
And I really did love the story beat about the doctor choosing that face because he needed to go home, because the last 13 years have exhausted not only his patients but also a great number of people watching the show. And it becomes about him being kind of worn out like the first doctor, who it was nice to see again briefly. So that was really nice, I thought.
With the just a quick one about exposition, which I'm sure didn't really like in the Chibnall era. That seemed to be just over the top. We weren't getting that with the first couple of episodes, but we were. But this one just felt like Donna was only there to say words, and Mel was only there to say words, and Kate comes out and says words, and it's like, okay, we got new audiences, guys. Disney, America. Let's just throw these words in so they can go and do a word search and find out about old Doctor Who. And it just felt really clumsily injected.
To be fair, if you go back and watch the Russell T Davies episodes from first time around, they're all full of exactly the same stuff.
Yes, but it's the way it's delivered. I thought it was just like one sentence, boom.
No, watch The Runaway Bride. This is the example I always come back to. The Runaway Bride, 35 minutes in, the Doctor comes face to face with the Ragnos, and for the next 11 minutes, those two characters are doing nothing but telling each other all the stuff that the audience needs to know. 11 minutes of just... And what makes it worse is that she's in this huge prosthetic. She can't even move. So it's 11 utterly static minutes of two characters just telling each other the plot. And that's Russell T Davies. Always.
But it's it's exposition, but it's also the explanation of the legacy of Doctor Who and overdoing it quite a bit because of new audiences.
Did you see the speech that Peter Capaldi made when he turned into Jodie Whittaker?
Where's my cock?
Sorry, I turned that bit off. No, but yeah, and also I felt Donna.
I mean, he basically gave her instructions as to how to drive the TARDIS. It wasn't good.
I don't think Donna had a great episode this time, apart from the end and a couple of moments where she had brilliant comedy moments where she gets, the unit job.
Yeah, you're right. She was much more background.
Kicking the crap out of the dolls was quite good.
Yeah. And those are the creepy dolls I've been waiting for so long in Doctor Who, because the Mark Gatiss one wasn't particularly brilliant.
I thought they were quite creepy.
Oh, yeah, but also you had so they weren't dolls; they were the tiny little gargoyles. But the tiny little gargoyles in the Angels Take Manhattan, right?
Yeah, they're okay. It's creepy dolls. That's the best creepy doll we've seen in Doctor Who.
I thought
Terror the Ortons.
I thought Donna got most of the best jokes in this one.
She got all the best jokes.
Really
had any good dialogue.
And I laughed. So the wheelchair joke that she made, where she makes a comment about parking the Doctor in a mobility scooter, and then she checks the scientific advisor that it was okay, or was it offensive? A little bit offensive. Oh, okay. I like that because at least that's sort of puncturing the kind of.
Yeah, and do you know what? That's got to not stop. You've definitely got to have characters that make mistakes, because that's what humans do, and that's what we're all doing of an age. We're all getting used to things that are changing that we all grew up with, and we've got to accept the fact that a lot of that's rubbish, and we've got to just ditch it. So I think, yeah, for sure, you've got to have people making mistakes. So I
don't think Davis will stop doing that, though. I think he's setting out his stall that this is going to be a Doctor Who that addresses those things and has characters who learn to understand those things in the episodes, and we watch that process happen.
And it also wasn't a serious.
Star Beast does it.
Yeah, but it also wasn't a serious moment. So it's like Russell T Davies kind of puncturing the seriousness of representation, because he's got a representative character there. He's got an actor who uses a wheelchair in the thing.
So there's no need for him to take Davros out of the wheelchair.
So then he can make a joke out of it.
Like I just did.
So who are we going to miss more, right?
It's a joke.
Who are we going to miss more, David Tennant or Catherine Tate?
Neither.
Moving on.
I mostly enjoyed Tennant this week.
What? You feeling all right?
It was the last one. He was moving on. Yeah. He had lots of irritating moments, but I mostly enjoyed him.
They were all very tanned. This was clearly like they filmed this during the 2022 heat wave, and you could tell Neil Patrick Harris looked orange at parts, and I think that was purely because of the weather we were having here.
I think that works as well because it's that odd toy-like thing quality. Yeah. So
Oh, is that why he wasn't wearing his trousers? Nah. Makes sense now.
Right, we've been talking for like longer than the episode. We could probably talk for another hour, but probably we should knock it on the head and give it a score.
Disappoint the view. You promised them 4 or 5 hours at the start.
Yeah, but I saw the faces staring back to me and shaking their heads.
He is the toy maker.
Has anybody got any more thoughts that they want to bring up before we do sort of round up and give it a score?
Yeah. Wild Blue Yonder was a 9 out of 10. Really good. Yeah.
Oh, you should have turned up for the episode then, Matt.
Yeah.
Oh, I wasn't there for that.
Speaking of which, though, no mention of gravity or Mavity this week.
Good point.
No, I was right. I was right about that. Yeah.
No, I think it'll come back in the.
It won't come back. It's a throwaway joke.
The salt came back. The Mavity could come back.
The salt came back because David Tennant gave an enigmatic "What have I done with the salt?" at the end of the salt bit. The Mavity gravity thing is just a joke.
I think we've cut a line, haven't we? There's a line now before season 1. That's it.
Yeah.
No,
So,
Simon.
Anyway,
there've been
Lee,
2
what did you
throw
score
forwards
Wild Blue Yonder
already. No, in fact, actually, Lee, take your.
They're talking about a big boss, aren't they?
They're talking about a big boss.
Yeah.
In this episode, he talks about something that even the Celestial Toymaker was too afraid to play games of.
Yeah.
They've picked up the ring. The Toymaker's coming back. Melanie Bush is coming back. The things that are coming back in series 1, at least 4 things from these episodes are coming back in season 1.
The Master coming back, you mean?
Master, not the
No.
Toymaker.
The Toymaker's coming back. Mel Bush is coming back. The boss is coming back. And either that is or might be a separate thing from the thing that Celestial Toymaker was too scared to play games against. But that's at least 3, if not 4 things.
But the tooth was the Master.
Yes.
Yeah.
Oh, the Master's tooth.
Master, yeah.
Oh, yeah. But no, the Toymaker's coming back.
Okay.
So
I agree with all of those things.
Line being drawn between these and the next series.
But the Mavity gravity thing was a joke that just served a few lines in an episode.
But it was more than a joke, Matt, because they went to the expense of casting actors and going to a location to do. No, you can't put your earphones in. I'm still talking.
You can.
But this is a scene that he's already seen.
Okay.
Yeah.
But
what was that? Yes. Put your headphones back on.
We're talking
I think so.
We're talking about whether the Newton, the Newton scene in the last episode and the Mavity gravity joke thing is going to be an ongoing thing. Is going to have meaning. I don't think so. I think the Newton scene was like a light interlude before Wild Blue Yonder, because you couldn't have a cold open for Wild Blue Yonder because it was basically Ark in space, and they turned up and there wasn't a cliffhanger moment that they could pinpoint until halfway through the episode. So the Newton scene there was just to give them something to do before the opening.
But if they'd have wanted to, they could have engineered it so they look out of the window and see no stars.
They could, but I think they just went for the joke.
But he
Or
went
the
to
TARDIS
the...
could have disappeared a bit quicker.
Okay, let me just say this. He went to the expense of going out to locations with new actors that are cast only in those parts with some really expensive special effects. And that pre-title sequence on Wild Blue Yonder was a very expensive pre-title sequence, a very expensive pre-title sequence. And I don't think it was just for a joke. I think it was the setup for something that we'll see next year.
Well, we have pitched our stalls. That's all I'm saying.
But every time we do that, Matt...
This wasn't the historical episode.
I didn't say it would be a historical episode. I said a substantial portion of it would take place in the past.
We had a historical moment with Isaac Newton.
I said we wouldn't see Shooty Gatwa before the regeneration. I said that months and months ago. I said there would be no 11th Doctor or any other Doctors in Wild Blue Yonder. I said that months and months ago.
Always got to be right about everything. Oh.
I mean, I wasn't arguing against any of those things. But now
We've had two multi-Doctor specials in a row here.
Yeah, sort of.
Well,
Right, let's go round and give scores. Oh, unless, Lee, did you want to throw something else in?
Just that you didn't get my score for Wild Blue Yonder, did you? Or did I send it in?
You weren't on the episode. I only get scores from people who are on the episodes.
Okay.
Otherwise, I could forever be going backwards and forwards getting extra scores.
You. It's not about you. It's about me.
No, it's not about me. It's about who's on the episode. We get the scores from the people who are there. That's the point.
Okay, I'm never going to tell you, and you're going to be thinking, what did Lee think?
I don't tweet the scores out or anything. The scores are purely for the conversation.
Yeah, it's fine. You never know.
Are you trying to make us curious? Simon, ask him
trying.
what his score was for Wild Blue Yonder.
Lee, what was your score for Wild Blue Yonder? I can't
8.
say.
Thank you, Simon.
It's an 8.
Yeah, moving on.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
That's
That was too low.
I mean, that was one less than Matt. Matt gave it a 9 earlier in this episode.
I really liked Wild Blue Yonder.
I like this new edge.
Not enough to give it a 10, but
Not quite, because it had the Newton bit that I thought I'm going to cut there.
Iain, give me a score for the Giggle.
8.
I've got to tell you something weird, and this is the second really weird thing that's happened this week to do with the Skype calls and the podcast. But before we started talking, I wrote down a box to put the scores in, and the box that I've written down, I put the names in, and it is exactly configured to the Skype screen that's in front of me. Everybody's in exactly the same position, all 6 of us. That's weird.
That's
Truly,
weird.
JR is Mystic Meg.
Tell you
The
what.
toy maker.
Oh, it's a toy maker, Matt. I mean, that was the more obvious jokes to make, wasn't it?
Well, I have to say, I had a dream last night that I'll be in one of the panels of the Muppet Show at the beginning. And look, this is, if you're watching on YouTube, this is exactly it. Statler and Waldorf over there. Yeah, we're all here.
Should we get on
Iain,
with it?
Iain, give me a score.
8.
Giggle. 8.
8.
I'm going to go one higher than that. I'm going to give it a 9. Simon.
Would have been a 10, but for Neil Patrick Harris.
What?
I know. It just doesn't convince me.
We just spent an hour reviewing it, and we've only just found out what you thought of the main villain performance.
Well, yeah, but I don't want to be. Yeah, but I know it's a personal thing. I don't think it's probably a particularly articulate criticism.
2 weeks listening to me talk about my problems with David Tennant, and you didn't think you could bring up your problems with Neil Patrick Harris.
I already have, though. I've already said that I can't bear him in the Lemony Snicket series. I think he's dreadful in that.
Oh, fair enough.
And but actually, towards the end of the episode, he improved. I also don't like the title, The Giggle. But other than that, I thought it was brilliant. So it's a 9, please.
Once again, that's Russell T Davies repeating itself, isn't it? Because throwing the giggle in is exactly the same as you threw in the in the Sound of Drums season, isn't it? So once again, and I don't think it's a deliberate reference back, John. I think it's just Russell T Davies repeating himself. But John, while you're there, give me a score out of 10 for this.
Yeah, I think 9's pretty good, isn't it? It's an absolutely, it's not perfect, but a great finale to New Who and a nice little bridge to the future.
Matt.
So I think it's better than Star Beast, but not as good as Wild Blue Yonder. So my prediction for the season of liking them more each time has sort of been broken, but it's only 1 point under, so it's an 8 for me.
Okay.
Oh God, Matt, are you saying you're wrong? That's just an inappropriate thing in the context of the episode.
I'm comfortable with saying I'm wrong. But Mavity
Really?
Gravity is
That's the
coming
first
back.
time I've heard it.
Lee.
I'm giving it a solid 8, and I'm sorry, Simon, but I think the title's perfect.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well,
That's a
that's
good
3
one,
8s, 3 9s. So for the sake of it, John, that's an 8.5 from this podcast for the Giggle. Right, some of us, probably not the ones that you see here now, are going to come back in a week or so to talk about, the people who missed talking about these things. So perhaps some people on this call, who knows what, are going to be back in a couple of weeks to re-go over these specials with a little bit of distance and have a conversation about the three, plus a kind of preview, I guess, of the Christmas special. So Lee, you're definitely not invited to that, because that's very much going to be a headphones off conversation.
Fair enough.
But we'll also be back, not quite as quickly as this, to talk about the Christmas special. That'll probably come out on like Boxing Day evening or something. Until those things happen, I was JR.
I was Iain.
I was John.
I was Lee.
I was Matt.
And I was Simon.
And we will speak again soon.